Hello again, whiskey friends. Welcome back to the Whiskey Riffs Lounge. It's Kelsey here. We're going to be doing a trio review here of some new bottles that were released a little while ago. I had to re-record this. Welcome to YouTube, right? We're going to be doing the Redwood Empire trio of the cask strength versions of the Pipe Dream, the Emerald Giant, and also the Lost Monarch. So stay tuned. You're not going to want to miss this. Let's get the show started. Hey guys, welcome back. Thanks so much for tuning in today. My name is Kelsey. I'm here in the Whiskey Riffs Lounge. If you're new to the channel, thank you guys so much for being here and checking this video out. Hit the like and subscribe. We really appreciate it. It does help the channel out a lot. If you're a patron, thank you so much for all your support. Let's jump into these. We've got 3 bottles to review today. First one is going to be the Pipe Dream from Redwood Empire. This sucker is 115.6. Mash bill on this is 74, 26, 26, 4.5, and then malted barley is 1.5. So it's a little bit different mash bill with that 1.5 malted barley in it. Now, if you are not familiar with Redwood Empire, they released all 3 of these offerings at like a 94 proof, I think, a lower proof entry point, and I really enjoyed all 3 of these. My favorite of the lower offerings is definitely the Lost Monarch. So when Redwood came out and said they're going to do a cask strength version of all of these, I was super duper excited about that. So let's jump in. Let's see how they score, see they stack up. We're going to do one by one. So we're going to start with the Pipe Dream, which is this one right here, and that's their bourbon released. So we're going to start with that one. Cheers to you guys. Let's break down the nose and the palate here. Man, really easy on the nose, what you expect from bourbon. There is a kind of a strange note, and I know this is a really strange note, but it kind of reminds me of, you remember old school, like, well, you may not be old enough to remember these, but these huge erasers or the eraser heads. That's what it's kind of getting a little bit on the nose on this one. It's kind of odd. It may just be my palate today. But overall, bourbon notes, vanilla, caramel, oak, nothing that stands out, like that is sticking out as unfamiliar, I should say. Just easy to approach. Now, I will say up front, it doesn't have a lot of ethanol on it for 115, 116, yeah, 116.8. So nothing that's going to just like burn your nose at cask strength. So let's get into the palate of this. Let's break it down. Cheers, everybody. Thank you guys so much for hanging out with me. So on the front of the palate, just a really easy drinking bourbon. Nothing that is out of the ordinary. Nothing that like sticks out and says, well, this one note is really prominent. It's really well balanced. Front of the palate is sweet up front. Let's go in for a second sip. Yeah, a little bit of apple note on that one. It's a little bit different than the previous sip, but overall, very approachable at cask strength. It's just got a really good, easy drinking profile. Like there's nothing that is off-putting about this in any way on this one. So I'm going to move on to the Emerald Giant, and then we'll jump into the scores of these in just a few minutes at the end, because I want you guys to go through all these with me. So this is the Emerald Giant. Cheers, everybody. This is their rye offering. This one is at 116.4. The mash bill is 94% rye, 5%, or excuse me, 94% rye, 5% malted barley, and 1% wheat. So that's a little bit different profile too, as far as mash bills go for these. So, and then your typical ryes, I should say. So cheers. Let's get into the nose on this one. Man, I love the citrus notes on this one, as you would expect from a rye. Typically either spearmint or citrus, but this one's a little bit more citrus, and it does have some spearmint in it, but man, just right off the nose, it is a rye drinker's rye, like super rye forward on the nose. It's got a little bit of caramel, so it's not overwhelmingly floral or anything like that. Front of the palate is sweet. Man, that's sweet. I was probably the most surprised out of all three of these about this particular release. I expected, like I said, myself to like the Lost Monarch the best because I really, really love that Boo Rye. It's so freaking good at 94 proof. So it just goes to show you not always that a cask strength version of it is going to be the best. So we'll get to the scores of that one in just a minute. Let's talk more about the front of this palate. Sweet up front. Transitions to the mid palate. It's about the same. Let's go for a second sip. Yeah. Man, if you just want a really, really good rye that just coats your mouth, but it's not super rye spice forward or floral. I don't typically like floral notes, so a lot of like rye forward stuff I don't typically enjoy as much as more rye drinkers do. This tastes that bridge between bourbon notes and rye notes blended together really well. Let's go on to the finish on this one. Man, the mouthfeel is really good on this. It is super viscous. The color on it as well is very, very good. That's that dark copper color. It's what you want. Like I said, I did try the Emerald Giant on the lower level. I didn't like it as much. I really like this at cask strength more than I did at the lower proof level. I think it was around 90 or 94 proof, 96, something like that. So again, price difference on these. If you guys hadn't checked this out, the originals were anywhere from 30 to 35. These are like 79 to 89 where I got them. So a pretty big jump in price point. So we'll get to the value of that and break down the scores in a little bit. Let's move on to what I anticipated mine being the best, or what I expected the most from, which was this Lost Monarch. So let's go in. Cheers. This is the nose on the Lost Monarch. This is going to be 117.2. The mash bill on this one is 55% straight rye, 45% straight bourbon. So it's a Boo Rye. And like I said, this was the one that I was most excited about because I love the lower proof offering. So let's get into the nose. Right off the bat, the nose is a little bit muted. I expected it to kind of jump out more at me. The nose on the rye was way more pungent in a good way. Like I said, this comes off a little bit muted on the nose. I was really disappointed by this particular bottle. And man, I don't know. It's got good notes. Like, don't get me wrong, it's not off-putting in any way. It's just that I had super high expectations for this, and so I feel like this kind of was a letdown for me. If you guys loved the cask strength or the lower proof version of this Lost Monarch, for $30, man, it's hard to beat, and it's probably one of the best brew ryes that's out there for that particular price point anywhere. So let's get into the front of the palate. All right, so front of the palate is a little bit soft, comes off a little fruity, not a whole lot. More baking spices up front from the bourbon, but I'm not getting those deep rye notes that I get on the Emerald Rye either. So overall, like on the front of the palate, sweet, easy to drink, but nothing that is going to just blow your socks off like I was anticipating it being. Again, this may just be my expectations, but overall, very mild from what I expected it to be at 117. I figured it would be more of a flavor punch of those notes that I really enjoy of the lower proof. So not so with this particular one. Okay, mid palate. more of the caramel, more of almost a butterscotchy from the bourbon too. Like this to me tastes more bourbon oriented than rye. There's just a little bit of the rye that comes through on this. And for some people that might be great. But for me and tasting the previous offering, I was expecting a lot more from this. Let's go to the finish, and then we'll go through all three of these breakdowns on what they brought to the table. So let me get over here to the slides. As well as I'm doing that, you guys, this particular version was originally, these guys are out of California. I don't know how much you know about Redwood Empire, but was sourcing, and at one point, Bardstown Bourbon Company was producing their distillate for some of their stuff. So it really was something that they were sourcing and blending and doing their own stuff on. But at the same time, it was something that they really wanted to push more because it was really popular. So let's look at these scores from the bourbon all the way through the Boo Rye. So here's the bourbon first. These scored pretty dang low for me. Nothing that stood out. Like, they're not bad whiskeys. They're just okay. The problem that I have with these is the value. For $80, I'm expecting a whole lot more from the whiskey than what I experienced with these. Now, granted, they're not bad whiskeys at any realm, but if I'm comparing them to everything that I've tasted before, as we go through all of these slides, you'll see how each one kind of ranked. The bourbon was probably the lowest out of all three of these, and it's a good bourbon. But to me, I think I'd rather pay $30. I don't get a lot more from this version as opposed to the other one. The Emerald Giant, which is their cask strength rye, scored well above the bourbon at 66. It's just a good solid rye. Out of all of these, this was probably my favorite, which surprised me. I know Dan from Bourbon Junkies really liked this one as well. And he loves the Boo Rye as well on the Lost Monarch. So it's just hit and miss, people. It just goes to show you that cask strength always on certain things isn't always the best. This is the Lost Monarch. Again, 66 is a solid score. It's a good whiskey. But overall, going back to these, I mean, they're down past the shoulder now on all three of these. I will say that they were all improved a little bit the more air that they got. But to me, the rye is the one that stood out the most. I got that one last of the three that I got, and by far it's been the most enjoyable for me. So if you guys are seeking these out and you have never tried their stuff, low proof Boo Rye, the Lost Monarch is the one to get. On the cask strength, if you're going to get one, get the rye. It's by far the best out of all three of them. I hope this was helpful for you guys in breaking this down. I had a fun time doing it. Thank you guys so much for hanging out with me. Until next time, we'll see you back here at the Whiskey Riffs Lounge. Thanks guys so much.
Jeff, just be friends with me. But you have these whiskey friends, and you say hello again. Oh, Jeffrey, you should just be friends with me. But you have these whiskey friends, and you